right? And I can disagree with him. I disagree with Russell Brand about lots of things. We get along just fine.
Yeah.
Right? And the reason for that is that Russell talks and listens.
Yeah.
You know, he isn't hitting me with a hammer trying to be right.
Yeah.
And so I don't like those arguments. I don't like arguments.
No.
You know, and people don't like arguments generally. This is why Joe Rogan is so popular.
Yes.
Rogan doesn't argue, and he isn't trying to be right. I mean, he has his opinions, and he'll defend them.
Well, it depends what you mean by argue, right? Like, I would say he argues in the good sense.
Well,
if he disagrees with something, he'll give
say
his
what
reasons.
he thinks, but he's not trying to be right.
I see, yeah.
You know, Joe doesn't play primate dominance hierarchy games. If he did, he wouldn't be where he was, where he is. He's trying to learn. You know, and he'll push back, but that's more a matter of...
He's trying to understand what you're saying.
You can use objections as a tool of inquiry. It's like, well, what about this? You know, because you want to see, does the person's viewpoint, is it possible for them to take that obstacle into account?
It's like a cloudy thing that you're trying to bring into focus.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's the potential of the world that you're trying to wrestle into order.
Oof. What was it like becoming super famous when you were, what, 50? 40, 50?
Well, it was probably better than 50.
Okay,
50 what? Let's see, 2016, 54.
So here's the question. How did you handle it well and poorly? And then the next question would be, what would it have been like if you were 20?
Well and poorly. You know, I had done a lot of clinical work, and I had a fair bit of exposure to the misery of the world. But when I started speaking to a much broader public audience, the magnitude of that misery became rapidly apparent. I didn't understand how many people there were who were literally dying for lack of an encouraging word. Okay. And that came on me full force and constantly. And that was, I think that's part of what made me ill, because I was very ill from 2018 till 2020, like terribly, terribly ill. And there were a variety of reasons for that, but you know, stress was one of them. I mean, I basically lost my job. I lost my clinical practice, which really hurt me because I knew those people, man. They knew me better than anybody they'd known in their lives. You know, I had relationships with all those people. And that just became impossible. And I was also being investigated by the tax authorities. And all this else, yes. And they admitted 3 months later that they'd made a mistake. It's like, oh, thank you for figuring that out. You know, your timing could have been better. Yeah. And so that was stressful. And then with the exposure to all that misery, that was a lot. And so could have I handled it better?
I mean, I guess, does that surprise you? Because I suppose a lot of people out there go, God, I wish I was, I don't know if anyone actually says this anymore, but I wish I was famous or something like that. But
people
the stress of that is what you're referring to, huh? And did you realize what that stress would be like as you grew in popularity? Because you didn't seek it out. It feels like it came and sought you out.
Yeah, well, it's a little of both, you know, in some ways, because I put all my lectures on YouTube. That was more curiosity. You know, I've tried to stay on the cutting edge of technology to the degree that I'm capable. And when YouTube popped up, I thought, oh, you know, what the hell's this? Permanent video. Permanent video. Oh, permanent video. That's sort of like the printing press, except for audio and video. We now have a printing press for audio and video. What the hell's that? Well, that's a Gutenberg revolution. Better jump on that. So I started, this is when YouTube was still cute cat videos mostly. I thought, I'll put my lectures online and see what happens. Yeah. You know, and they started to grow. By the time everything exploded around me in 2016, I had like 200 hours of lectures online, which really saved me, right? Because people came after me when I opposed idiot Trudeau's idiot legislation. You have to use pronouns. It's like, fuck you, buddy. Seriously, you try to get control of my tongue and see what the hell happens. So I knew what that meant. Anyways, you know, I got pilloried for that, for my meanness, even though I could see what happened. I told that bloody Senate in Canada in 2016 that they were going to produce a psychological epidemic among young women. I knew that. I thought, okay, what are you doing? You're confusing people about their sexual identity. Okay, well, who's most confused? Oh, young women. Who are sensitive to psychogenic epidemics? Oh, young women. Oh, I see. So we're going to confuse adolescent girls about their sex. How's that going to work? Oh, we'll have a psychological epidemic. Well, that's exactly what happened. And I could see that. I knew the literature. There's a literature on psychological epidemics going back 300 years, outlined in a book called The Discovery of the Unconscious, which is a bloody classic, a great book. Yeah, it's a great book. And so I told the Senate that. Anyways, people came after me for being mean. Can't you just, call the poor victims what they want? It's like, not if they're going to force me. Thank you very much.
Did you have to learn how to handle that level of criticism? I mean, it seems like you've grown into it. You're okay with it now. But in the beginning, do you remember it being...
You got to be afraid of the right things.
Yeah.
So you learn to handle it. It's like... I learned in the 1980s that totalitarian states depend on the lie. I spent my whole life studying atrocity. Nazi atrocity, Soviet atrocity, Maoist atrocity, North Korean atrocity, Japanese atrocity, serial killers, sexual slayers, like you name it. And I had a fair number of pretty dark people in my clinical practice too. And what did I learn? Lies lead to hell. And I learned that. It's not some hypothesis. It's like the Soviet Union was a tangle of lies, just like Maoist China, just like bloody communist China now. That's hell. So how do you get to hell? You lie. How do you stay away? You tell the truth. Okay, so what am I afraid of? Like politicians? Journalists? No, hell. Right. So you got to have your fears in order, man.
Yeah.
And I know you don't lose control of your tongue. You sacrifice your soul and the state and everyone you love. You don't know it. You're maintaining your silence to protect yourself. It's like, yeah, good luck with that. That's never worked. That's the moral of the story of Jonah. When God comes knocking and says that you have something to say, it's time to open your mouth. So I knew that.
What's it been like having tens of thousands more tell you how much you've helped them?
Well, it's great.
And how have you not, fallen into, or how do you struggle with the sin of pride when everyone's telling you how wonderful you are constantly? Maybe it's balanced by everybody telling you how much you suck.
Look, so there's a paper written by Carl Jung. It's a brilliant paper. It's very hard to understand unless you know what it's about. It's called Relations Between the Ego and the Unconscious. Okay. And he talks in there about the danger of inflation, right? Which is identifying with the redemptive process, let's say. You could do that if you're a therapist. It's like, are you helping? Well, the process is helping. Is that you? Well, why was I a good therapist? Well, I read Rogers. I read Maslow. I read Jung. I read Freud. I mean, there's all these people I depended on.
Right.
And much more than that. And all of that was founded on a tradition that was even deeper because the psychotherapeutic endeavor is an extension of dialogue. It's an extension of redemption by logos. This isn't me.
Okay.
I know the difference. I know the difference. It's not it's like, let's say you have an IQ of 150. Well, you don't take pride in that. Well, why? It's not you. It's a gift. It's a talent. It was something that you were awarded, let's say. Okay. You have a responsibility to use it with integrity. Beauty is the same way. It's not you. I mean, you can screw it up.
Yeah.
But that's the sin of pride. And so I've integrated the thoughts of many people. And what's my contribution to that? Well, some furtherance of it, some integration of it, certainly capitalization on the opportunity to communicate that to a broad audience. But I don't. And this is probably an advantage of being older too. It's like, what the hell do I want? There's nothing in it for me, particularly. I'm not that interested in, am I interested in status? Well, everyone wants, if they have any sense, everyone is appreciative if they have a stellar reputation. And if you have a reputation for actually being of aid to people, it's like, yeah, that's pretty nice. That's why I keep doing the tour. Yeah. Because in principle, It helps people. That's what they say.
Yeah.
And it looks like it because lots of them are thriving. And
that's what I keep hearing.
So why would I stop doing that?
Yeah.
Especially when the world is so unstable. It's so unstable.
So, okay, so if you were 20 and this had all erupted, how would you have handled that differently? Would have that gone to your head in a way that...
Oh, more.
Yeah.
You know, you have to put yourself in the situation of people who were in that situation. That's part of the reason it's been interesting to talk to Russell Brand. You know, when I saw Tiger Woods fall prey to temptation, I thought, well, all you moralizers, you don't have a bloody boatload of Swedish bikini models waiting for you in a bus at the end of your day.
Come back to me when you've had that and you've declined them.
That's for sure.
That's right.
That's for sure, man. That's failure to be offered temptation is not a moral virtue.
Amen.
Right? That's for sure.
Yeah.
And so you should step lightly. You know, and talking to Russell's been very interesting in that regard because, you know, he took advantage and the opportunities were offered constantly, and the culture, of course, rewarded that immensely. Yeah. And he found it hollow and hurtful in the final analysis, which is exactly right. Would have I fallen prey to that when I was 20? More. You know, more.
Also, a massive thanks to Hallow for sponsoring this podcast. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd is where you want to go if you want to try out their entire app for 3 months for free. It is an absolutely fantastic app. They actually have all of my audio podcasts on there right now, so you can listen to them over there. They have Catholic lo-fi, meditation, amazing stuff. Hallow.com/Matt Fradd to get 3 months for free. Hey, thanks so much for watching this clip. If you want to watch more clips of me chatting with Jordan Peterson, click these videos somewhere here on this screen.